What do you mean I attacked them?
Sorry. Please.
Who is the wolf? Why did they call him Wolf, daughter? Why do they call him Wolf?
It's not for me, no.
I've been fighting against the pedophile, against a lot of corruption from the authorities.
There is a lot of corruption, and their own father abused the children.
And their own?
Father? I have
3 little ones, twin girls of 5 years old and a little boy of 8. It's been a nightmare. I mean, I've lived it with my 3 little ones. Nobody has done anything.
This is what Mireya said to Agraz Cortés in an interview on Imagen television shortly before her body was found lifeless. After 7 years of complaints, the woman decided to take the case to the media, finally hoping to receive the help she was so demanding. It was 10 o'clock on the night of June 8th of the year 2017 when an employee of the Agraz Cortés family arrived at the house located at 907 San Bernabe Street in the San Jeronimo Lidice neighborhood of the Magdalena Contreras delegation, all this in Mexico City. Once inside, he realized that everything was completely silent. At the foot of the door, he saw the body of Rosa Maria, 68 years old, the grandmother of the family. Enrique, her 70-year-old husband, was in a nearby corner. The employee couldn't determine if they were unconscious or even worse, lifeless. So he decided to continue inspecting the house. In one room lying on the bed were Emiliano, 10 years old, and his younger sisters, the twins Aranza and Regina, both 6 years old. Each one had a Bible and a wooden Christ by their side. On one side of the bed was Mireya, the 38-year-old mother of the children. Everyone was in the same condition as the elderly. The employee did not hesitate to call the authorities, who quickly arrived at the crime scene. Then the paramedics arrived, who delivered the terrible news. All the members of the household were already without vital signs except for Rosa. The woman was urgently transferred to a hospital in the south of Mexico City. On the other hand, the bodies of Enrique, Emiliano, Aranza, Regina, and Mireya were transported to the Institute of Forensic Sciences of the Superior Court of Justice of Mexico City. The autopsy would reveal that the cause of death was poisoning with a high amount of antidepressants. The Central Homicide Investigation Prosecutor's Office began to investigate the quintuple suicide, trying to figure out how such an act could have occurred. But before knowing this, we must get to know the family involved in the case and above all, the protagonist of it. Mireya Agraz Cortés was born in the year of 1979 in Mexico City. Her parents, Rosa and Enrique, instilled in her and her 2 brothers, Quique and Miguel, faith in God from the very beginning. While Mireya had a good relationship with all members of her family, her closest bond was with her father. She also had many friends, as everyone who knew her described her as a friendly and outgoing person. Thus, after finishing high school, Mireya began studying for a degree in marketing at the University of the Valley of Mexico. By the year 2001, she got her degree and started working in a marketing and multi-level company that was dedicated to buying and selling gold bars. Mireya was climbing the corporate ladder to the point where she managed to build her own sales team, creating a network of distributors. So, for several years, her life went on, let's say perfectly, although she felt a bit lonely emotionally. But this changed in the year 2005 when she met Leopoldo Olvera Villa, a young lawyer specialized in commercial law cases and civil litigation who came from an important legal family. The personality of this young man was completely opposite to hers. He was introverted and calm at the same time, but he was also extremely polite and gentlemanly with her, which is why the romance did not take long to arise. Besides, opposites attract. In this way, by the end of that year, they got married and started planning to have a family.
I lived with this person for 6 years and got married totally in love with
him.
I thought he was different. He was a very good person, apparently good, polite, gentlemanly to people. Well, he is a person like educated, right? But
during the year 2006, Mireya began to have depressive episodes and refused to see a specialist. That same year, she tried to take her own life, but luckily she was able to come out unscathed. After that, she completely devoted herself to faith and regained interest in life. Overcoming this setback in the year 2007, she and her partner welcomed their first child, Emiliano. Everything seemed to be going well at that time. The child grew up happy and healthy. Mireya and Leopoldo were luckily more united than ever. However, in December of the year 2010, two events occurred that would change the course of the family forever. On one hand, Mireya found out she was pregnant again, this time with twins. On the other hand, little Emilio began to behave in a very strange way. At 3 years old, the little one lost control. His sphincters cried for anything, had constant nightmares, and didn't want to leave his mother. At first, Mireya thought that the changes in her son's behavior were due to a health problem and took him to the proctologist. What the doctor told her left her speechless. The symptoms that the little one presented were compatible with intimate abuse. Distraught, the woman took Emilio to psychologist Leticia Abrego to find out if this was true. So after 10 sessions, the specialist came to the same conclusion as the proctologist. Emiliano exhibited drastic and unusual behaviors such as constantly touching his private parts, being irritable, and crying easily. He also became aggressive, showed minimal tolerance to frustration, and had significant hypersensitivity in the anal region to the point of losing control of his sphincter.
My child had nightmares. Big ones. A child, for you to realize, a child who is being abused stops eating. A child, many nightmares, starts with evacuations. Lack of sphincter control, many nightmares, headaches, they don't eat well, they get a bit cranky.
On June 16th of the year 2011, Mireya reported to the public ministry the intimate abuse that her son had experienced. She had the testimony of two doctors as evidence and thought this would be enough, but it wasn't. On June 29th of that year, she sought an expert opinion from the Juan and Child Psychiatric Hospital, Navarro, where the diagnosis of abuse was confirmed and intimate violence. Leopoldo claimed it was all a big lie and his relationship with his partner ended. Not even the birth of the twins managed to get them through the matter in a civilized way. In August, he filed for divorce and custody of his son before the 10th Family Court of the Superior Court of Justice of Mexico City. The judge in charge of the case, Cristina Espinosa Rosello, determined as a first action a provisional visitation and cohabitation regime between the father and the two girls who had already been born. In June, Judge Espinosa Rosello ordered Mexico City's System for Integral Family Development to conduct a second expert examination of the child and the father. The psychological test indicated that Leopoldo could have been a victim of the same crime for which he was accused when he was a minor. In addition, it was detected that he was likely responsible for the abuse against Emiliano. The child told psychologist Marisidro from Mexico City's DIN that his father wore a mask while sexually abusing him. While it could not be denied or affirmed the truth of this, the expert pointed out that we had to believe his word and that he was at risk living with Leopoldo.
What do you mean I attacked them? Who is the wolf? Why did they call him Wolf, daughter? Why do they call him Wolf?
Yes, because, darling.
In October, he requested the head of the 10th Family Court to carry out expert tests on parental alignment. This is a disorder characterized by the set of symptoms that result from the process by which a parent transforms the consciousness of their children through various strategies with the aim of preventing, hindering, or destroying their ties with the other parent. While this figure was not recognized by any prestigious health or psychiatric institution, at that time it was still valid. Judge Espinosa Rosello then authorized the Forensic Science Institute to carry out the expert examination. These new studies showed that there was no evidence that Emiliano suffered intimate aggression and highlighted that he used the same words as his mother to refer to the alleged abuse. On the other hand, the expert in psychology appointed by the Forensic Science Institute of the Federal District, Rocio Estela Gomez Orozco, in just one observation session and interview with the child, concluded that there were no signs of abuse, that the child was a confident, secure, and sociable child, and that most children of that age had problems expressing and recognizing affections. She also pointed out that Emiliano was doing well in school and that he had no specific difficulties in socialization or aggressive behaviors, something that usually occurred in cases of abuse. She then recommended the gradual and supervised restoration of the relationship between the child and his father. Instead she began to think that the intimate abuse complaint would never get anywhere. So on November 3 of the year 2013, she agreed to sign a shared custody agreement. Shortly after, she began to see her ex-husband and form a new bond. At the same time, he committed to paying a monthly child support pension. Although they did not stop the divorce and continued living in separate houses, the family gradually came back together until something happened again. Mireya filed a new complaint with the Central Prosecutor's Office for Sexual Crimes. In it, she indicated that in February of the year 2014, the entire family traveled to Disneyland in Florida for a pleasant vacation. However, once there, the twins told her that their father was sexually abusing them. The woman obviously suspended the trip and forced everyone to return home.
Who is the wolf?
Oni. Who is any?
Who is?
Who is Paul?
Who is Paul? I don't know him.
Who is it?
At the same time, Leopoldo filed a motion before the 10th Court to be granted custody of the minors. Outraged by the actions of her ex-husband, Mireya filed a complaint with the Judiciary Council against the judge for ignoring the expert opinions of the System for Integral Family Development and the Association for the Comprehensive Development of Abused People, where the abuse had been confirmed. For his part, Espinosa Roselo declared himself incompetent and passed the case to the judge of the 11th Family Court, Silvia Araceli Garcia Lara. Then, in September of 2014, a new custody hearing was called for the girls and the boy to testify about what happened. Emiliano told about all the intimate abuse and his sisters corroborated this version. Then, Judge Garcia Lara asked the secretary to bring in Leopoldo so he could hear the statement. The man, for his part, arrived with toys that Emiliano threw in the trash, saying he didn't want anything from him. The judge was surprised by the reaction since, according to the files, the little boy had never acted so erratically before. After this, the battle between both parents continued. Leopoldo claimed that Mireya suffered from mental imbalance and presented the document certifying that she attempted to take her own life in 2006, thinking that this could influence the custody decision. Psychological tests were also conducted on both adults. These revealed that both exhibited violent behaviors and personality disorders. Leopoldo seemed to have a lot of anxiety about the disintegration of his family and felt powerless to resolve the situation. He was described as an enthusiastic and very emotional person who acted impulsively without considering the consequences of his actions. And on the other hand, Mireya seemed to have cognitive overload because she pursued her goals intensely and whimsically. She was described as an immature person with a tendency to the fanciful. She tried to appear affable to gain understanding and acceptance, and she was always attentive to others' reactions to see if she achieved the expected effect. All her emotions were changing and superficial, in addition to being intolerant of failure. Finally, studies determined that the children did not suffer from intimate violence, but they did suffer from family violence caused by the mother. During the rest of the year 2015, Mireya continued trying to obtain full custody of her children, but she was forced by the judge to take them to a court living center so they could meet their father. The contact was supposed to be only 5 or 10 minutes. Every time she didn't, she was fined and could even get an arrest warrant. In September of the year 2016, Mireya filed a third complaint with the Capital Prosecutor's Office for intimate abuse by the father against one of her daughters. This allegedly occurred at the living center where the little ones had to go to meet him. She recounted that one of the twins said her father touched her in the bathroom of the center where there were no cameras or surveillance.
Where did this happen? And they're not taken care of? Where is the lady who takes care of them?
However, a month later, the girl was given the Bosti test, which is conducted through an interactive cartoon with which the children feel comfortable to talk. This turned out negative. The girl said that her father hadn't done anything to her and that what she said was just a joke for her mother. In addition, interviews were conducted with the center's psychologist and all confirmed that the girl only went to the bathroom 3 times and that none accompanied her father. At that time, Leopoldo, by the way, stopped paying alimony and the tension between both parents reached its peak. Did this have anything to do with it? Was the statement due to this? Well, you'll tell me in the end. Mireya contacted investigator Evin Jobert, a specialist in child abuse cases who worked at the Dreaming Butterflies organization. She asked him to help her with the case and told him that she had started recording her children to get testimony of the assaults. The man visited her with preconceived notions but found her quite unbalanced during the meeting. Unbalanced. Instead of focusing on the abuse her children were suffering, she used most of the time to mention the alleged intimate relationships her ex-husband was maintaining. Kirians also noticed that when the woman spoke about the abuse her children were suffering, she did it with phrases that seemed taken from the internet or a manual and not as a victim would do. But this was not what surprised them the most, but the fact that when she showed them the 15 recordings she had made of her children, he could notice that they acted as if they were repeating some kind of script.
Let them express what's in their heart.
What else?
Realizing that everything seemed like a simulation, Evie offered to help her, but not in the way Mireya expected. She proposed getting someone to provide her with psychological care.
And I watched the videos, and in those videos, some words are swept away, some lessons to the children where she insisted they say, "We don't want to continue anymore." Those videos clearly showed that there was a simulation, and in my experience, I confronted her and I told her clearly. I told her, "I need to help you."
But the woman refused.
She told him that she wanted to keep custody of her children by any means, and even asked him to help her edit the videos by deleting the parts that incriminated her. It's very cruel. I said, "What you're doing is very cruel. It's perverse. It's very, very wrong. That should not be." In those videos, what is shown, what is seen, is that you are forcing them to make an accusation against their dad. This thing about editing these videos, and Bill also spoke with Enrique, who said he was very distressed by the situation. I don't know anyone who makes videos like that in a situation like this, and that would be a crime.
And Bill also spoke with Enrique, who said that the situation had him very distressed. However, the specialist noted that he was not referring to the abuse his grandchildren were suffering, but to the economic catastrophe his daughter was subjecting him to. He pointed out that the lawyers charged a lot but without results, since they gave them 50,000 pesos so that one of the tests would favor them, and this did not happen. In the middle of the conversation then, Mireya approached and the tone of the chat completely changed. Evie felt that she controlled her father as if he owed her something. After this, the investigator completely disengaged from the case. After the psychiatric exams that Mireya underwent and the supposed parental alignment was corroborated, on the 25th of February of the year 2016, Judge Garcia Lara came to a conclusion. She took away the woman's custody of her children and granted it to Leopoldo. In addition, she prohibited the children from having contact with their maternal grandparents and established that if Mireya resisted handing them over, there would be legal consequences.
The 11th judge took my children away from me. She took away my guardianship and custody of parental authority. The father filed an incident against the father of my children for the change of guardianship and custody. They took away my guardianship, custody, and right to live with my children, as well as the same rights from their grandparents.
After this, on October 24th of that year, Leopoldo reported Mireya to the prosecutor's office for family violence against their daughters and son. After this, the man, along with the judicial agents from the prosecutor's office for the protection of girls, boys, and adolescents, raided Mireya's house to look for the children. Since they were not there, they broke into the maternal grandparents' house, intimidated and threatened the family to hand over the minors, but Enrique refused. Instead, the Association for the Comprehensive Development of Rape Victims added this situation to the case in favor of Mireya and managed to spread it further to the point where the woman gave an interview on open television. She attended Francisco C's program that aired on Imagen Television. There she recounted how her ex-partner abused her children and mentioned that no local authority was addressing her case.
Well, I have been dealing with this problem for 5 years, 3 months. It has been a total nightmare. The truth is that we are suffering death threats from the father. The father of my children is a lawyer from a family of lawyers. He's fighting for the children. He's fighting me for custody and parental rights.
She expressed that the courts violated her children's rights by forcing them to live with their father, even though they allegedly didn't want to, and without considering that her ex-husband was accused of domestic violence. I have appraisals.
From the DI, I have appraisals from ADI, BAC. The DI says it's not advisable for the father to live with my children.
In that same interview, Alicia Rosas, prosecutor for sexual crimes of the Capital Prosecutor's Office, who was participating in the news desk, said that the issue of custody had been resolved by a family court judge.
After the broadcast of the interview, the Attorney General of Mexico City, Rodolfo Rios Garza, continues. However, she comes with some parallel processes, which are family processes.
After the broadcast of the interview, the Attorney General of Justice of Mexico City, Rodolfo Rios Garza, reported that the investigations did not accredit that the father of the children had intimately abused them. He indicated to the local media that if this were the case, Leopoldo would have been consigned and would be in jail. So tired, Mireya presented another appeal so that they would not take custody of her children. At the same time, she withdrew them from school and locked them in their grandparents' house, where they spent all their days reading the Bible. On June 7th of the year 2017, almost 7 years after the first complaint, Mireya decided to end the suffering caused by the fight for custody of her children. For this, she devised a plan with her parents. Before carrying out the act, Enrique wrote his testimony and sent money to his other children so they could give him a dignified burial. Finally, he wrote a note to one of the two in which he said the following: "We took a cocktail of pills. Molotov, if it didn't hurt your mom and me, shoot each of us with a 25. Kick." Thus, at 11 o'clock at night that day, Mireya posted a farewell photo with her children on her social networks. Then she mixed the sedative pills with her mother in a glass of chocolate milk and served 6 glasses. They gave them to the 3 little ones to ingest along with a Bible and a wooden Christ. Finally, they also took them along with Enrique. Hours later, Kike read the letter his father had sent him and tried to contact him, but there was no answer. In fact, he asked a trusted employee who performed services at the house to go see if they were okay. It was 10 o'clock the next night when that man saw the lifeless bodies of Enrique, Mireya, Regina, Aranza, and Emiliano, as well as finding Rosa completely unconscious. Once the authorities arrived at the crime scene, they transferred the elderly woman to a hospital south of Mexico City. Rosa was admitted to intensive care in a coma. Meanwhile, the first investigations were being carried out to solve the quintuple homicide. Although at first the police thought it could be a robbery, they quickly noticed that the bodies showed no signs of violence and there were also no signs of forced entry into the house. After this, the revelation of the plan that Mireya had carried out came when Kike gave them the note that his father had written. Thus, on June 12th, Rosa left the intensive care unit of the hospital after receiving a gastrointestinal lavage. However, the woman said she didn't remember anything that had happened before the crime. The doctor said she might be suffering from temporary amnesia, so they had to wait a few weeks before they could question her. And finally, on June 26th of the year 2017, Rosa appeared before the ministerial authority but processed with the help of her children a DMIE, protection against any type of judicial order against her person. As a result, she secured the suspension and returned home without issue. Since then, there was no follow-up on the case or the accused. The only thing that was confirmed was the conclusion reached by the Central Investigation Prosecutor's Office for Homicide of the Attorney General's Office of Mexico City. They pointed out that on June 7th of the year 2017, Mireya convinced her parents to end their lives and with those of their 3 children. The expert report concluded that there had been a consensus on the part of the adults to carry out this terrible situation. The file of the Family Court 11 showed that the woman had lost custody of the children because she had a history of psychological disorder and aggression. This seemed to be enough to give some kind of sense to her actions, eliminating other possible suspects. In addition, the Attorney General's office stated that no history of intimate abuse by Leopoldo had been found. Rios Garza pointed out that none of the 7 complaints filed by Mireya against her ex-husband could be substantiated. However, soon some media outlets like Aristegui News made public the 3 expert opinions conducted on the eldest son, where 2 concluded that there was evidence that intimate abuse had been committed by the father. After the news spread throughout the country, Jesus Moralarizabal, who was the defense attorney for the Agraz family, said that the authorities had not addressed the complaint filed by his clients against Leopoldo. He also stated that Mireya planned the crime to save the children, that she couldn't handle the pressure of having to give up custody, and that she didn't want to wait to see if the protection order she had imposed would work or not. After this, the authorities released a second posthumous note from the family written by Mireya. In it, she said that she didn't want to hand the children over to their father, and that's why she preferred to give them to God. On one hand, Leopoldo's relatives claimed that he was a victim and that the accusations he had received for alleged intimate abuse of the minors were not legitimate. Rocio Medrano, his lawyer, also said on open television that the man suffered a serious, severe, and painful loss and that he deserved respect. Lawyer Miguel Saucedo stated that Leopoldo tried to retrieve his children by any means possible. He recounted that when he started the legal process against Mireya, he went to parent groups and psychologists to see what else he could do. He was open to doing anything in order to rescue his children, as long as it was obviously through legal means. Thus, on June 9th, the Attorney General's office confirmed that Leopoldo would not be investigated for the death of his ex-wife and his children, and on July 17th of that same year, the case was closed forever. Join the exclusive Pepe Misterio members by pressing the button below for access to extra content and to support the channel. Remember that now on Saturdays is the podcast I do with my partner Edson, which you can find as many more mysteries on all platforms.
Thank you.